There was something about last night, wasn't there? You may not have words for it yet. You may have brushed it off as a strange dream, a restless moment, or just another night that felt slightly heavier than usual. But deep inside, something in your spirit whispered that it wasn't ordinary. It wasn't random. It wasn't just your imagination drifting in the dark. And the last night carried weight. And you felt it. Maybe you woke up at an unusual hour, your heart beating just a little faster than normal. Maybe you turned over in your bed, sensing a presence you couldn't explain. Not something you saw with your eyes, but something your spirit recognized instantly. Or maybe it wasn't fear, maybe it was tension. A pleasure. A self-derised something was near, something was watching, something was trying. And yet nothing touched you. Pause there. Let that sink in. Because what you didn't see is more important than what you did. There are moments, rare, sacred moments, when the spiritual realm brushes close to your physical reality. Moments when something attempts to cross into your space, not by accident, but by assignment. And last night, whether you fully realized it or not, was one of those moments. This is not coincidence that you are hearing this now. Out of all the noise, all the distractions, all the content you could have encountered, you were led here. Because your spirit is ready to understand what your mind has not yet processed. Last night, something tried to cross your boundary. Not a physical boundary, not a visible line, but a spiritual one. One that has been placed around you long before you even understood its power. A boundary that does not come from your own strength, but from divine authority. A line drawn in realms you cannot see, but one that everything in the unseen must respect. And something tested it. You didn't imagine the shift. You didn't overthink the feeling. You didn't exaggerate the unease. Your spirit picked up on something real. Something intentional, something that moved toward you but could not reach you. Why? Because you were untouchable. Not by luck, not by chance, not because nothing tried, but because something stood between you and what approach. Archangel Michael. Yes, you need to hear that again, not casually, but clearly. Archangel Michael stood between you and what tried to cross into your space. You may not have seen him. You may not have heard the clash. But in the unseen realm, there was movement. There was resistance. There was a force that said, no further. A force that does not negotiate with darkness. A force that does not hesitate when it comes to your protection. And that is why you woke up this morning. That is why nothing followed you into today. That is why whatever tried failed. But here is the part that changes everything, and you need to stay with me closely, because this is where most people disconnect too early. This was not just protection. This was a message. Because when something attempts to cross your boundary and fails, it reveals two things at the same time. First, it shows there is something about you worth targeting. Second, it proves there is something around you that cannot be broken. You are not just protected, you are marked. Marked in a way that the unseen recognizes. Marked in a way that draws attention, not only from light, but from forces that cannot stand what you carry. And last night, something got close enough to test that boundary, but not close enough to break it. Do you understand what that means? It means the line around your life is real. It means your protection is active. It means you are being watched over more closely than you realize. And it also means something has shifted. Because attempts like that don't happen randomly. They happen when you are on the edge of something. When you are about to step into a new level, a new awareness, a new alignment that changes everything. Last night was not an ending. It was a signal. A signal that something is moving. A signal that something sees you. A signal that something tried and could not succeed. And now, you are being called to understand why. Because what happened last night is only the beginning of what is about to unfold. Type "I am protected" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 1818 is now surrounding you. There is something around you that most people will never fully understand, and the truth is, you haven't fully understood it either. At least not until now. You felt it before, but you couldn't explain it. That moment was something should have gone wrong but didn't. A situation that could have escalated but somehow dissolved. The time when you walked away untouched from something that should have shaken you, broken you, or pulled you into chaos. You told yourself it was luck. You told yourself it was timing. You told yourself it just worked out. But it wasn't any of those things. It was a boundary. An invisible line drawn around your life, not by your hands, not by your effort, but by divine authority. A boundary that exists in the unseen, yet governs what is allowed to come near you and what must stop at a distance. You cannot see it with your eyes, but everything in the spiritual realm can see it clearly. And more importantly, it must obey it. This is why last night matters so much. Because something approached that boundary and could not cross it. You need to understand this deeply, not just as a concept, but as truth that settles into your spirit. Not everyone has awareness of this kind of protection. Not everyone walks with this level of covering. But you, yes, you, have been placed inside a perimeter that has been established long before this moment, long before last night, long before you even realized you needed it. And that boundary is not passive. It is active. It responds. It resists. It enforces. It is not just there to exist. It is there to defend. There are forces in the unseen that test boundaries. They observe. They watch. They look for opening, for weakness, perhaps as points. And when they sense something valuable, something marked, something carrying light, they move closer. Not randomly, not carelessly, but intentionally. And that is exactly what happened last night. Something moved toward you, not blindly, but with awareness. He recognized something about you, something worth approaching, something worth testing. But what it encountered was not what it expected. It encountered resistance. It encountered a limit. It encountered a line that could not be crossed. And in that moment, everything changed. Because boundaries like this are not suggestions. They are commands. They are enforced by authority far greater than anything that tries to challenge them. And when that authority is activated, nothing unauthorized can pass through. This is why you felt something but nothing happened. This is why there was tension but no outcome. This is why there was presence but no impact. Because the boundary held. You need to hear this clearly. You are not exposed the way you think you are. You are not walking through life unguarded, unprotected, or vulnerable in the way your fears sometimes suggest. There is a covering around you that operates even when you are unaware of it. Even when you are asleep. Even when your mind is quiet. Even when you are not actively thinking about protection, your protection is still active. And this is where most people misunderstand their own lives. I think safety comes from control. I think protection comes from awareness alone. I think being careful is enough. But what you experienced last night proves something deeper. That there are moments when protection steps in without your permission, without your effort, without your involvement. Because it has already been assigned to you. This boundary is not random. It is not temporary. It is not weak. It is intentional. It was placed because of who you are, because of what you carry, because of where you are being led. And anything that tries to interfere with that path must first face the boundary that surrounds you. And last night something did. But here is what makes this even more important, and you need to stay with this part carefully. When something tests a boundary and fails, it does not forget. It learns. It recognizes that there is authority present. It understands that access is denied. And in that realization, a shift begins, not just around you, but within you. Because now, you are becoming aware. Aware that you are not as vulnerable as you thought. Aware that something is actively watching over you. Aware that your life is not open territory for anything to enter freely. And that awareness changes everything. It changes how you move. It changes how you respond. It changes how you interpret the moments when something feels off. Because now you know there is a line. A real line. A powerful line. A line that was tested and held. And this is only the beginning of understanding what truly surrounds you. Type "I stand within divine protection" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 2727 is now activated around you. There was a moment last night, a very precise moment, when something made its move. Not in chaos. Not in randomness. Not in confusion. What in intention. You didn't see it with your physical eyes, and that is exactly why it almost went unnoticed. Because what happened did not belong to the visible world. It unfolded in a realm where movement is silent, where presence is felt before it is seen, where intentions travel faster than words. And in that realm, something aligned itself with one purpose: to cross into your space. You must understand this clearly, because this is where many people misunderstand their own experiences. Not every disturbance is accidental. Not every shift is meaningless. Some moments are calculated. Some approaches are deliberate. And last night was one of those moments. Something approached you with awareness. It wasn't wandering. It wasn't lost. It wasn't confused. It knew exactly where you were. And more importantly, it knew exactly what it was trying to do. There are forces that operate by observation. They study patterns. They wait for openings. They look for moments when your guard appears lowered, when your awareness seems quiet, when your environment feels still. And when they sense that moment, they move. Last night, something believed it found that moment with you. But it miscalculated. Because what it did not account for was what stands with you. As it moved closer, something happened that you could not see. But if your spirit could replay that moment, you would understand why you woke up untouched. There was a resistance that rose instantly. Not slowly. Not gradually. Instantly. A force met that approach. A presence stood in the way. And that presence did not negotiate. This is the part you need to absorb deeply. The attempt was real, but so were the defense. The movement toward you carried intention, but the resistance carried authority. And authority always overrides intention when that intention is not permitted. That is why the attempt failed. Not because it stopped trying, but because it was stopped. You felt something, didn't you? That brief tension. That subtle discomfort. That unexplained shift in the air. It may have lasted only seconds. It may have passed quickly. But it was enough for your spirit to register that something had happened. And yet nothing followed. No harm. No disruption. No continuation. Just silence. That silence was not emptiness. It was the aftermath of a blocked attempt. Because when something is denied access, it does not linger. It retreats. It pulls back. It recalculates. It recognizes that the space it tried to enter is not open, not available, not vulnerable. And that is exactly what happened around you. But here is what changes everything, and you must not miss this. The fact that something tried does not mean you are weak. It means you are visible. It means something recognizes value in your space. It means something sees movement in your life. It means something is aware that you are not stagnant, that you are not ordinary, that you are not unnoticed. And when movement begins, resistance often follows. But here is the truth that sets you apart from what most people never realize. The resistance did not succeed. Let that settle. It did not succeed. You were not touched. You were not affected. You were not altered. Because the authority surrounding you is not theoretical, it is active. And this is where Archangel Michael's presence becomes undeniable, not as an idea, not as a symbol, but as an intervention. Because when something carries that level of authority, it does not wait for permission to act. It responds instantly to protect what has been assigned to it. And last night, that assignment was you. You did not have to call it. You did not have to ask for it. You did not have to be aware of it. It was already there. That is why the attempt ended before it could begin. And now listen carefully, because this part is where understanding turns into awareness. When an attempt fails at this level, it sends a message back into the unseen. It signals that the space is guarded. It confirms that access is restricted. It establishes that whatever surrounds you is not passive, not absent, not negotiable. And from this point forward, things begin to shift. Because what tried once will not approach the same way again. It will hesitate. It will observe differently. It will recognize that what surrounds you is not easily bypassed. And at the same time, you begin to change. Because now, whether you fully realize it yet or not, you are no longer unaware. Something inside you has registered that what you felt was real, that what happened had meaning, that what protected you was not coincidence. This is the moment where you move from questioning to knowing, a knowing that you are covered, a knowing that you are guarded, a knowing that what tried failed, and that failure was not small, it was absolute. Type "I am untouchable" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 3333 is now activated around your life. And now listen closely, because this moment we are in right now, it is not just about you. It is about every soul who has not yet realized they are protected too. When you choose to support this message, you are not giving to a voice. You are helping light break into someone else's darkness. The word says, "Give, and it shall be given unto you." And this is not a memory. It is a living promise being spoken over you right now. I feel led to say this clearly. Your seed today becomes someone else's awakening tomorrow. If this message has stirred something in you, then this is your moment to act. Not later, not eventually, but now. Your support through Super Thanks with the PayPal link in the description and QR code is not small. It is a spiritual response. As you give, you align yourself with the flow of divine increase, and what you release will return multiplied in ways you cannot yet see. Step into this moment and move as you are being led. You need to understand something now that most people never fully grasp. And it is this truth that will begin to shift how you see everything that has been happening around you. What happened last night was not random, and more importantly, it was not misplaced. It did not happen because you were weak. It did not happen because you were exposed. It happened because of who you are becoming. There is a reason why certain people move through life unnoticed in the spiritual sense, untouched by deeper resistance, unchallenged by unseen forces. It is not because they are safer. It is because they are not carrying what you carry. They are not stepping into what you are stepping into. They are not positioned where you are positioned. And because of that, nothing needs to test them. Nothing needs to approach them. Nothing needs to observe them with the same intensity. But you are different. There is something about your life right now that has begun to shift in a way that is not only visible in the physical world, but also recognizable in the unseen. You may not have fully articulated it yet. You may not have spoken it out loud. But something inside you has been changing. The way you think, the way you respond, the way you see things, the way you feel things, it is not the same as it was before. And that shift does not go unnoticed. When you begin to move into alignment, when you begin to rise in awareness, when you begin to carry a different level of clarity, something happens. You begin to stand out, not in noise, not in appearance, but in presence. And that presence carries weight. It carries energy. It carries something that draws attention from both sides of the unseen. This is where most people misunderstand their own lives. They think being targeted means something is wrong with them. They think resistance means they are doing something incorrectly. They think difficulty means they are off track. But the truth is the opposite. You were targeted because you are on track. You were approached because you are moving forward. You were tested because something about you is no longer passive, no longer stagnant, no longer invisible. Last night was not just an attempt, it was a recognition. Something recognized that you are not where you used to be. Something recognized that you are not as unaware as you once were. Something recognized that your boundary is not only present, but active. And when recognition happens, testing often follows. This is not about fear. This is about awareness. There is a difference between someone who carries nothing of value and someone who carries something that must be protected. And you, whether you fully accept it yet or not, are carrying something that requires protection. Something that is not meant to be interrupted, not meant to be altered, not meant to be interfered with. That is why the boundary exists. And that is why it was tested. You are not being singled out for harm. You are being recognized for movement. You are not being approached because you are vulnerable. You are being approached because you are advancing. There is something unfolding in your life right now that has created a shift in how you are perceived in the unseen. And that shift brings attention. But here is where your understanding must deepen, because this is where your power begins to stabilize. Being targeted does not mean being defeated. Being approached does not mean being accessed. Being tested does not mean being overcome. Last night proved that. What approached you could not touch you. What moved toward you could not reach you. What attempted to cross your boundary could not pass. And that tells you something critical about who you are and what surrounds you. It tells you that your protection is not conditional. It tells you that your boundary is not weak. It tells you that whatever is unfolding in your life is supported by something far greater than anything that tries to interfere with it. And I'll listen closely, because this is where your awareness must become steady. When you begin to understand why you were targeted, you stop reacting with confusion and start responding with clarity. You stop questioning what is wrong and start recognizing what is shifting. You stop drinking and start standing. Because now you know. You know that what is happening around you is not accidental. You know that what you felt was not imagined. You know that what protected you is real. And most importantly, you know that you are not moving through this alone. This is the moment where your perception changes. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you begin to ask, "What is this revealing about where I am going?" Instead of seeing resistance as a problem, you begin to see it as confirmation. Confirmation that something is moving. Confirmation that something is aligning. Confirmation that something is being protected because it matters. You were not targeted by accident. You were seen, and what was seen was not weak. It was potential. It was movement. It was alignment. And that is why something tried, but it failed. And that failure is your confirmation that whatever you are stepping into cannot be stopped by what tried to reach you last night. Type "I walk in divine authority" in the comments if you receive this message. Lesson code 4444 is now surrounding your path. There is something you must understand now, and it is not symbolic. It is not poetic. It is not meant to simply comfort you. It is meant to ground you in truth. What stood between you and that attempt last night was not just a force, not just resistance, not just an unseen reaction. It was intervention. There is a difference between general protection and direct intervention, and last night crossed into a level that many people go their entire lives without recognizing. Protection surrounds you at all times, but intervention happens at specific moments when something actively tries to override what has been set in place. And when that happens, something greater steps forward. That is what happened for you. Archangel Michael did not observe that moment from a distance. He did not wait to see what would unfold. He did not allow the situation to develop or escalate. The moment that movement was detected toward your boundary, the response was immediate. There was no delay, no hesitation, no uncertainty. Because where there is authority, there is decisiveness. You need to picture this, not as imagination, but as understanding. Something moved toward you with intention, but it encountered something that was already positioned. Not arriving late, not reacting slowly, but already present, already aware, already standing where it needed to stand. This is what most people fail to grasp about intervention. It does not come after something happens. It is already in place before anything can unfold. And last night proved that what stands with you does not wait for permission to act. It acts because it has already been assigned to you. There was a line, yes, but there was also a presence at that line. A presence that carries authority that cannot be challenged. A presence that does not negotiate with what is not permitted. A presence that enforces what has already been established over your life. And when that presence stepped forward, everything else had no choice but to stop. You must understand this clearly. What approached you did not retreat because it changed its mind. It did not withdraw because it lost interest. It withdrew because it was confronted with something it could not override. Something it could not bypass. Something it could not argue with. It is the level of authority that intervened for you. And this is why you did not experience escalation. This is why what you felt did not turn into something greater. This is why the moment passed without consequence. Because intervention ended it before it could begin. There are moments in life where things are allowed to unfold, where situations play out, where outcomes develop over time. But there are also moments where something is stopped instantly, where no progression is allowed, where no continuation is permitted. Last night was not a moment of unfolding. It was a moment of interruption. And that interruption came with authority that did not need explanation, did not need approval, and did not need reinforcement. It acted because it had the right to act. And that right comes from assignment. You are not randomly protected. You are not casually watched over. There is intention behind what surrounds you. There is structure behind what stands with you. There is a reason why intervention happened the way it did. Because you have been assigned protection that does not fail when tested. Now listen closely, because this is where your understanding must deepen even further. Intervention like this does not happen without purpose. It does not occur simply to prevent. It also occurs to reveal. To reveal that what surrounds you is real. To reveal that what protects you is active. To reveal that what stands with you is not distant or symbolic, but present and engage. Last night was not just about stopping something. It was about showing you something. Showing you that you are not alone in moments you do not even fully perceive. Showing you that your life is not left open to interference. Showing you that when something moves toward you with the wrong intention, it does not go unanswered. And this changes how you move forward. Because now you understand that there is a level of protection around you that does not rely on your awareness to function. It does not depend on your reaction to activate. It is already active. You are not required to defend yourself. You are not required to respond. You are not required to resist. Because what stands with you had already taken that position. This is why you must stop seeing yourself as exposed. This is why you must stop assuming you are navigating everything alone. Because you are not. There is a presence that steps in when needed, that stands firm when challenged, that enforces what have been declared over your life without hesitation. And last night, that presence made itself known, not through visibility, but through outcome. Nothing happened to you. Nothing reached you. Nothing crossed into your space. That is not absence of activity. That is the result of intervention. Type "I am guarded by divine authority" in the comments if you receive this message. Lesson code 5555 is now activated over your life. Now you must understand something deeper about what happened last night, because if you only see it as protection, you will miss the greater purpose behind it. Yes, you were protected. Yes, the attempt failed. Yes, nothing touched you. But that was only the surface of what truly took place. Beneath that moment was a message, a warning that was not spoken in words, but delivered through experience. Because every failed attempt carries information. Every blocked movement carries meaning. Every moment where something tries and cannot succeed is not just an ending. It is a signal. Last night was a signal. It was not sent to frighten you. It was not meant to create fear or anxiety. It was meant to awaken something inside you. It was meant to shift your awareness from passive observation to active understanding. Because until now, you may have moved through life sensing things but not fully trusting what you sensed. You may have felt moments that seemed off, but you dismissed them. You may have noticed subtle shifts in energy, but you explained them away. But now, that is no longer an option. Because what happened last night confirms something that cannot be ignored anymore. There are things happening around you that require your awareness. Not your fear, your awareness. There's a difference between being afraid and being alert. Fear weakens your clarity. Fear distorts your perception. But awareness sharpens you. Awareness grounds you. Awareness allows you to see without reacting unnecessarily. And that is what this moment is calling you into. Because the attempt that failed was not just about access, it was about proximity. Something got close enough to test the boundary. Close enough to create a moment. Close enough for your spirit to feel it. And that tells you something important. It tells you that not everything that approaches you announces itself loudly. Not everything comes with obvious signs. Some things move quietly. Some things operate subtly. Some things rely on your lack of awareness to move unnoticed. But last night, that pattern was interrupted. You noticed something. You felt something. Even if you didn't fully understand it, your spirit registered it. And that registration is the beginning of awareness. And now listen carefully, because this is where your response becomes important. The warning is not telling you to panic. The warning is not telling you to withdraw from everything. The warning is not telling you to live in constant suspicion. The warning is telling you to become conscious. Conscious of what you feel. Conscious of what shifts around you. conscious of moments that do not feel aligned, even if you cannot explain why. Because awareness is what keeps your boundary strong from your side. Yes, your protection is active. Yes, your boundary is enforced. Yes, there is authority surrounding you that intervenes when needed. But your awareness works with that protection. It does not replace it, but it aligns with it. And this is where most people fall short. They experience protection, but they remain unaware. They are guarded, but they stay passive. They are defended, but they do not grow in perception. And because of that, they miss the deeper purpose behind moments like this. Last night was not just about what tried to cross your boundary. It was about showing you that your boundary exists. Showing you that your space is not open. Showing you that there are forces that recognize it. And now, showing you that you must recognize it too. Because once you become aware of your boundary, you move differently. You stop allowing certain things to come too close in your daily life. You stop ignoring subtle discomforts. You stop dismissing what your intuition is trying to tell you. You begin to trust the quiet signals. You begin to notice the small shifts. You begin to stand differently, not in fear, but in certainty. Because now you know something you didn't fully know before. You know that your space is protected. You know that your boundary is real. You know that what surrounds you responds when something tries to interfere. And that knowledge changes how you carry yourself. Now here is the final part of this warning, and you must hold on to this carefully. When something fails once, it does not mean it will never try again. But it also does not mean it will succeed. What matters is how you respond after the attempt. Do you go back to being unaware? Or do you step into awareness? Do you ignore what you felt? Or do you begin to trust it? Do you remain passive? Or do you align with what is already protecting you? This is the moment where you choose. Because what happened last night was not random. It was a wake-up moment. A moment that separates who you were before from who you are becoming now. And the more aware you become, the stronger your alignment becomes with the protection that already surrounds you. Type "I am aware" and protected in the comments if you receive this message. Lesson code 6666 is now activated around your awareness and your path. There is something you experienced last night that you may have tried to ignore, explain away, or push aside, but now you are being asked to revisit it, not with doubt, but with clarity. Because what you felt was not random. It was not meaningless. It was not just your mind reacting to nothing. It was your awareness picking up on something real. Think back carefully to that moment. Not broadly, not vaguely, but precisely. There was a shift. Something changed in your environment, even if nothing visibly moved. Something in the atmosphere felt different, even if the room looked the same. That is the first sign, and it is often the most overlooked. The shift in the air itself. It is subtle, but it is unmistakable once you learn to recognize it. The stillness becomes heavier. The silence feels deeper. The normal rhythm of your surroundings feels interrupted, even if only for a few seconds. That is not imagination. That is perception. Your spirit recognized that something entered the edge of your space, even if it could not cross into it. And then there was the feeling inside your body. Not fear in the way most people understand fear, but awareness. A sudden alertness. A quiet tension. A moment where your body became still, not because something happened physically, but because something was sensed. Your heart may have shifted slightly. Your breathing may have changed for a brief moment. Your focus may have sharpened without you even realizing why. That is not coincidence. Your body responds to what your spirit detects, even when your mind has not caught up yet. And then there is the moment that many people dismiss too quickly, the interruption in your rest. You may have woken up suddenly, without a clear reason. You may have turned over, unable to settle for a brief period. You may have had a dream that felt different, heavier, more intense than usual, even if you cannot fully remember it now. That interruption was not random, because when something approaches your boundary, your state of rest is often the first place where awareness breaks through. You are more open in that state, more receptive, more sensitive. And that is why the moment did not pass completely unnoticed by you. But here is what matters most. Even in that awareness, nothing happened to you. You were not harmed. You were not overwhelmed. You were not affected beyond that moment. And that is the clearest sign of all. Because when something approaches and fails, it leaves behind only a trace, not an impact. A trace that you can feel, but not something that can change you. That is exactly what you experienced. Now listen closely, because this is where your understanding must become precise. The signs you felt were not meant to confuse you. They were meant to confirm something. To confirm that your awareness is active. To confirm that you are not disconnected from what is happening around you. To confirm that your perception is functioning exactly as it should. You are not someone who moves through moments like this without sensing them. You are someone who feels them. Even if you do not fully understand them in the moment, your spirit registers what is happening. And that is not something to dismiss. It is something to develop. Because the more you begin to recognize these signs, the more clarity you gain in moments that would otherwise feel uncertain. You begin to differentiate between normal and not normal. You begin to trust the subtle shifts instead of ignoring them. You begin to understand that what you feel has meaning, even when it is quiet. And that is how awareness grows. Last night was not just an isolated experience. It was a demonstration of how your awareness works, a demonstration of how your body responds, a demonstration of how your spirit detects what your eyes cannot see. And once you begin to recognize that pattern, you will never experience moments like that the same way again. Because now, when something shifts, you will know what it means. When something feels different, you will not dismiss it. When your body responds, you will not ignore it. You will understand that you are sensing something real, and that awareness aligns you even more with the protection that surrounds you. Because awareness does not create protection, but it works with it. It strengthens your position. It sharpens your perception. It allows you to move through moments with clarity instead of confusion. And that is what last night has given you. Not just protection, not just intervention, but confirmation. Confirmation that what you felt was real. Confirmation that your awareness is active. Confirmation that you are not disconnected from what is happening around you. And now, the question is not whether you felt something. The question is whether you will begin to trust what you felt. Type "I trust my spiritual awareness" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 7777 is now activated within your perception. Something has changed. Not in a way that is loud, not in a way that is immediately visible, not in a way that others around you will notice right away, but something has shifted, and it shifted the moment that attempt failed. That moment did not end in silence. It initiated movement. And now, you are standing in the beginning of something that is already unfolding. You must understand this clearly, because this is where many people miss what is happening in their own lives. They recognize the moment, but they do not recognize the shift that follows. They feel something, but they return to normal as if nothing has changed. They experience protection, but they do not realize that protection has now transitioned into positioning. Last night was not just a defense. It was a turning point. Because when something tries and fails, it does not leave things the same. It creates a reaction in the unseen. It creates a realignment in the space around you. It confirms that your boundary is not only present, but established. And once that confirmation is made, everything begins to adjust accordingly. You are not in the same position you were in before that moment. Something around you has stabilized at a higher level. Something within you has become more aware. Something in your environment has been recalibrated. And that recalibration is not temporary. It is the beginning of a shift that will continue to unfold. Now listen closely, because this is where your understanding must expand. When a boundary is tested and holds, it strengthens. It becomes more defined. It becomes more recognized. It becomes more difficult to approach in the same way again. That is what has happened around you. What surrounds you is not only present, it has been reinforced. And this reinforcement changes how things interact with you moving forward. You may begin to notice it in subtle ways. Situations that once felt uncertain may begin to feel clearer. People who once felt confusing may begin to reveal themselves more directly. Moments that once felt heavy may begin to feel lighter without explanation. This is not random. This is the effect of the shift. Because when your boundary becomes stronger, what does not align with it becomes more obvious. What cannot cross into your space begins to separate itself more clearly. What does not belong begins to fall away without effort. And this is where many people misunderstand what is happening. They think things are changing around them by coincidence. They think situations are resolving on their own. They think clarity is appearing without reason. But what is actually happening is alignment. Alignment with what has already been established around you. Alignment with the protection that has already been activated. Alignment with the authority that intervened for you. Last night was a moment that confirmed it. This is the phase where it begins to unfold. And here is the part you must hold on to carefully. This shift is not something you need to force. It is not something you need to chase. It is not something you need to control. It is already in motion. Your role is not to create the shift. Your role is to recognize it, to move with it, to stay aligned with it. Because when you try to control what is already unfolding, you create resistance within yourself. But when you recognize what is happening, you move with clarity, not confusion. Now you may ask yourself, what exactly is changing? The answer is not always immediate. Shifts like this reveal themselves over time, through patterns, through moments, through small but undeniable changes that begin to accumulate. You will begin to notice things that feel different, even if you cannot explain them at first. That is how you know the shift is real. It does not need to announce itself loudly. It shows itself quietly, consistently, undeniably. And the more you pay attention, the more you will see it. Because now you are not the same as you were before. You are more aware. You are more aligned. You are more grounded in the understanding that what surrounds you is active. And that awareness allows you to move differently. Not in fear, not in uncertainty, but in quiet confidence. Confidence that what tried could not succeed. Confidence that what surrounds you is stronger than what approaches you. Confidence that what has shifted is working in your favor, even before you fully see it. This is the beginning, not the end of something, but the start of a new phase. A phase where your boundary is not only present, but reinforced. A phase where your awareness is not only active, but growing. A phase where what surrounds you is not only protecting you, but positioning you. And now, everything that follows will unfold from this point forward. Type "I move" with the shift in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 8888 is now activated over your path. And as this shift begins to unfold in your life, understand this. What you are receiving here is not just for you alone. Every word, every revelation, every moment of clarity becomes a light for someone else who is still in darkness, still searching, still unaware of their protection. When you sow into this message, you are not supporting a channel. You are opening doors for souls who are waiting to hear what you just heard. The word declares, "Cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days, and this is your moment to release what will return multiplied." I feel this strongly. This is not a casual action. This is a prophetic response. As you give through super thanks with a PayPal link in the description and QR code, you align yourself with the flow of divine increase and spiritual impact. What you release now will come back as clarity, as favor, as unexpected breakthrough. Do not delay this moment. Step into it and act. Now that you understand what happened, now that you recognize the attempt, the boundary, the intervention, and the shift, there is something required of you. Not out of fear, not out of pressure, but out of alignment. Because moments like this are not only about what was done for you, they are about how you respond moving forward. You are not being asked to panic. You are not being asked to retreat. You are not being asked to live in constant alertness. You are being asked to align. Because when something has been revealed to you, even subtly, your next step determines how that revelation settles into your life. You can ignore it and return to old patterns, or you can step into it and move differently from this point forward. And what you do now matters. The first thing you must do is become intentional about your awareness. Not forced, not exaggerated, but steady. You are no longer moving through your environment passively. You are no longer brushing off what feels misaligned. You are no longer dismissing those quiet internal signals that tell you something is not right. Because now you know that those signals have meaning. When something feels off, you do not argue with it. When something shifts, you do not ignore it. When something does not sit right within you, you do not override it just to maintain comfort. You pause. You observe. You allow your awareness to register what is happening without rushing to explain it away. This is not fear. This is clarity. And clarity is what keeps you aligned with the protection that surrounds you. Now listen carefully, because this is where your posture begins to change. You must begin to carry yourself as someone who understands that your space is not open to everything. This is not about isolation. This is about discernment. There is a difference between being open and being accessible. And right now, you are being guided to understand that not everything deserves access to you. Your time, your attention, your energy. Because your boundary is not only spiritual, it must also be reflected in how you move in your daily life. You begin to notice who drains you and who aligns with you. You begin to recognize environments that feel heavy versus those that feel clear. You begin to see patterns that once went unnoticed. And instead of forcing yourself to remain in those spaces, you begin to create distance, not out of fear, but out of understanding. Because your alignment matters. Now this next part is important, and you must hold on to it carefully. Do not go searching for what tried to approach you. Do not try to identify it, chase it, or confront it. That is not your role. Your role is not to engage with what failed. Your role is to remain aligned with what protected you. Because the moment you shift your focus from alignment to pursuit, you step out of the position that kept you protected in the first place, You do not need to fight what has already been stopped. You do not need to confront what has already been denied. You do not need to understand every detail of what happened in order to move forward correctly. What you need is trust. Trust that what intervened will continue to intervene. Trust that what surrounds you is active, not absent. Trust that you are not required to handle things that have already been handled. This is where many people lose their alignment. They experience protection, but then they shift into overthinking. They experience intervention, but then they try to take control. They experience clarity, but then they doubt it. Do not fall into that pattern. Stay steady. Stay grounded. Stay aligned with what has already been established around you. And now, there is one more thing you must do. You must become still in a way that allows you to remain connected to your awareness. Not physically still at all times, but internally steady. Because when you are internally steady, you can recognize what is real and what is not. You can distinguish between normal and not normal. You can move with clarity instead of reacting to every small shift. This stillness is not weakness. It is control. It is strength. It is what allows you to remain positioned correctly without being pulled into unnecessary movement. Because now everything is not meant to move you. Some things are meant to reveal themselves while you remain steady. And that is exactly where you are being placed now. Not in reaction, not in confusion, but in alignment. Because what happened last night was not just about stopping something. It was about preparing you to move differently, preparing you to see differently, preparing you to remain grounded in a way that keeps you aligned with the protection that has already proven itself. And from this moment forward, how you carry yourself will reflect what you now understand. Type "I remain aligned and steady" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 9999 is now activated over your alignment. Now that you have seen what happened, now that you understand the attempt, the boundary, the intervention, and the shift, there is something you must be aware of moving forward. Because moments like last night do not exist in isolation. They are part of a sequence. And when something tries and fails, it does not simply disappear. It recalibrates. You need to understand this without fear, but with clarity. What failed once will not return in the same way. It will not approach you with the same pattern. It will not try to cross your boundary in the same manner. Because it has already learned that direct access is not possible. And this is where most people lose awareness. They expect the same type of moment to repeat itself. They look for the same signs, the same sensations, the same shifts. But what comes next is rarely identical. It becomes subtle. It becomes indirect. It becomes something that does not try to cross your boundary directly, but instead tries to influence what is already inside your space. And now listen carefully, because this is where your awareness must sharpen even more. The next move is not always about entry. Sometimes it is about influence. Not stepping into your space, but attempting to shift your thoughts. Not crossing your boundary, but trying to disturb your clarity. Not reaching you physically, but attempting to create confusion within you. This is how patterns evolve when direct access is denied. And this is why your awareness must remain steady. You may begin to notice small things. Moments where your thoughts feel slightly off. Situations where your clarity feels briefly clouded. Interactions that feel unnecessary or misaligned. These are not the same as what happened last night. These are not attempts to cross your boundary. These are attempts to distract your alignment. Because if something cannot reach you directly, it will try to pull you out of position indirectly. This is the next move. Not force, but influence. Not entry, but distraction. Not confrontation, but subtle disruption. And this is where your role becomes critical. Because while your protection remains active, your alignment determines how effective that protection continues to be in your daily experience. You are not responsible for stopping what already cannot reach you. You are responsible for staying aligned with what protects you. And alignment is lost not through major events, but through small shifts, through overthinking, through unnecessary reactions, through allowing your focus to move toward what does not deserve your attention. This is where many people unknowingly weaken their position. They begin to focus on what tried. They begin to analyze what happened. They begin to question everything around them. And in doing so, they shift their awareness away from clarity and into confusion. That is the opening, not in your boundary, but in your focus. And that is why you must remain steady. Do not overanalyze what already failed. Do not search for what has already been stopped. Do not give attention to something that no longer has access. Because attention is a form of energy. And where your attention goes, your clarity either strengthens or weakens. This is not about being unaware. This is about being precise. You are aware of what happened. You understand what it means. And now, you move forward without giving it unnecessary space in your mind. Because your position is not one of defense. It is one of alignment. Now here's the most important part of this section, and you must hold on to it carefully. What surrounds you has already proven its authority. It has already demonstrated its ability to stop what is not permitted. It has already shown you that you are not exposed. So the next move is not about fear of what might happen. It is about confidence in what has already been established. Confidence that you are not accessible in the way something hoped you would be. Confidence that your boundary is not easily bypassed. Confidence that what stands with you is still present, still active, still enforcing what was already declared. Because once you hold that confidence, influence loses its power. Distraction loses its grip. Confusion has no place to settle. And you remain exactly where you are meant to be, aligned, steady, and untouched. This is how you stay untouchable. Not by fighting what cannot reach you. Not by reacting to every small shift. But by remaining in the position that was already proven last night. A position of clarity. A position of awareness. A position of alignment. And from that position, nothing that failed once will succeed later. Type I remain untouchable in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 1010 is now activated over your protection and your focus. Now you must understand something that changes everything about how you see yourself after last night. Because what happened was not only about protection, it was about activation. Something did not just stand for you. Something responded with you. And in that moment, whether you realized it or not, your authority became active in a way it had not been before. You are no longer standing in the same position you were in before that moment. Because when a boundary is tested and holds, it does not only prove the strength of what surrounds you, it also reveals the authority within you. And this is where your understanding must shift completely. You are not just someone being protected. You are someone who carries alignment with that protection. That means something important. It means what surrounds you does not operate separately from you. It operates with you. You are not disconnected from it. You are not outside of it. You are within it. And that changes your role moving forward. Because now, you are not just being covered. You are participating in that covering through your awareness, your alignment, and your posture. Last night was the moment where that connection became real, even if you did not consciously recognize it at the time. Something tried to cross your boundary. Something stood against it, and you remained untouched. That is not passive. That is alignment in action. And now listen carefully, because this is where many people fail to step into what has already been given to them. They experience moments like this, but they continue to see themselves as vulnerable, as uncertain, as reactive. They do not step into the authority that has already been demonstrated around them. But you cannot remain in that mindset anymore, because what happened last night removed that uncertainty. It showed you that your space is not open. It showed you that your boundary is not weak. It showed you that what stands with you responds without hesitation. And now, it is showing you that you must begin to carry yourself differently. Authority is not loud. Authority is not forceful. Authority is steady. It is quiet. It is certain. It does not need to prove itself repeatedly because it has already been established. And that is exactly where you are now. You do not need to question whether you are protected. You do not need to test whether your boundary is real. You do not need to wait for another moment to confirm what has already been proven. You already know. And knowing changes how you move. You begin to speak differently, even in your own thoughts. You begin to carry yourself with a level of calm that is not based on circumstances, but on understanding. You begin to respond to situations without being pulled into them. You begin to recognize that not everything deserves your reaction, because your position is no longer one of uncertainty. It is one of established authority. Now, this does not mean nothing will ever approach again. It does not mean nothing will ever try again. But it means that what approaches you does not define you. What tries does not control you. What moves toward you does not determine your outcome. Because you are no longer reacting to what comes, you are standing in what has already been set. And this is the difference between being protected and walking in authority. Protection surrounds you. Authority stabilizes you. Protection defends you. Authority positions you. Protection acts when needed. Authority keeps you aligned so that action is rarely required. And now, you are stepping into both. You are not guessing anymore. You are not questioning anymore. You are not second-guessing what you feel or what you experienced. You are recognizing it. You are standing in it. You are allowing it to shape how you move forward. Because once authority is activated, it does not go dormant. It remains. It becomes part of how you exist. Part of how you respond. Part of how you navigate everything that comes next. And this is where your confidence must come from. Not from what you can control. Not from what you can see. But from what has already been demonstrated to you. Last night was not just protection. It was confirmation. Confirmation that you are not operating at a level where things can simply reach you without resistance. Confirmation that your space is governed by something greater. Confirmation that your alignment carries weight. And now, you must carry that understanding forward, not as a reaction to one moment, but as a permanent shift in how you see yourself. Because once you understand that your authority is active, you stop moving like someone who is unsure. You stop hesitating in moments that require clarity. You stop giving space to things that do not belong. You remain steady. You remain aligned. You remain positioned. And from that position, you do not need to prove anything. Because what surrounds you has already done that. Type "I walk in activated authority" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 1111 is now activated within your presence. Now this is the moment where everything comes together. Not as a theory. Not as a possibility, but as something that has already been established over your life. Because what began last night did not end when the moment passed. It did not fade when you woke up. It did not disappear when everything around you returned to normal. It sealed something. There are moments in your life where things shift quietly, and then there are moments where something is confirmed permanently. Last night was not just a passing experience. It was a sealing moment. A moment where what surrounds you made itself known not through visibility, but through outcome. And once something is confirmed at that level, it does not go back to uncertainty. You are not who you were before that moment. Not because something was added to you, but because something was revealed to you. You now know. You know that your boundary is real. You know that your protection is active. You know that intervention is not distant. It is immediate. You know that what stands with you does not hesitate when something tries to approach, and that knowledge becomes your foundation. Because from this point forward, you do not move in doubt. You do not move in hesitation. You do not move in uncertainty about whether you are exposed. You move in understanding. And understanding stabilizes everything. Now listen closely, because this is the final part that must settle within you. What has been sealed over you is not temporary. It is not conditional. It is not dependent on constant effort from your side. It is established. That does not mean you become careless. It does not mean you stop being aware. But it does mean you stop questioning what has already been proven. You stop looking for confirmation that has already been given. You stop wondering if you are protected when you have already experienced that protection directly. Because doubt weakens your perception, but certainty strengthens your alignment. And alignment is where everything continues to work in your favor. You are not walking forward hoping to be protected. You are walking forward knowing that you are. That is the difference. And that difference changes how everything unfolds from here. Situations will come and go, but you will not be shaken the same way. Moments will arise, but you will not question your position the same way. Because you are no longer relying on assumption. You are grounded in experience. And experience has already shown you what happens when something tries to cross your boundary. It fails. That is not something you need to test again. That is something you carry forward as truth. Now this is where everything settles into its final position. You are not someone who was always touched. You are someone who remained untouched. You are not someone who escaped by chance. You are someone who was covered with intention. You are not someone who is hoping nothing happens again. You are someone who understands that whatever happens must first face what surrounds you. And that changes everything. Because now, your life is not defined by what tries to approach you. It is defined by what is allowed to reach you. And last night made that very clear. Nothing unauthorized reaches you. Nothing misaligned crosses into your space. Nothing outside of what is permitted can override what has been established. This is the seal. A seal not placed in fear, but in authority. A seal not created in reaction, but in assignment. A seal that confirms that your life is not open territory. It is governed. It is protected. It is aligned. And from this moment forward, you carry that understanding with you. Not loudly, not forcefully, but steadily, quietly, eternally. Because you do not need to prove what has already been demonstrated. You simply remain in it. You remain aligned with it. You remain grounded in what has already been shown to you. And that is how you continue forward, untouched, protected, and positioned exactly where you are meant to be. Type "I am sealed and protected" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 1212 is now permanently activated over your life. And now, as this message seals something over your life, hear this clearly. What you have received today is not meant to stop with you. Every word, every revelation, every moment of awakening becomes a seed that can break chains in someone else's life. Scripture speaks, "Those who sow in tears shall reap in joy," and right now, your giving becomes a living act that releases light into places still covered in darkness. I feel this deeply. You are not just watching, you are being invited to move. When you release your support through Super Thanks with a PayPal link in the description and QR code, you are stepping into a prophetic act that multiplies beyond what you can see. This is not a transaction. It is alignment with a divine mission that reaches souls who are waiting for truth. As you give, heaven responds, and what you release will return to you as protection, clarity, and unexpected breakthrough. Do not hesitate in this moment. Act now and become part of what God is doing through this message.